Maybe that's Nairobi, but there are other places.
Did your house have a backup generator?
Yes, but it had a backup generator. But at that time, I'm saying like a blackout where I was in the house. Now, it happened actually during the day.
Yeah.
And you could hear the whole neighborhood was silent. But for like 10 minutes, you could read it. And I didn't experience any other blackout.
But you know, when it comes to blackout...
Last year,
yeah.
to Lugula blackout, the whole country for a whole day.
But
I remember that.
But you know, blackouts in Kenya, we're actually doing so well. I was listening to this South African, YouTuber who was in Kenya, and she was saying she was so amazed that she's not seen any blackout the whole time that she's been there. You know, and then also Nigerians in Nigeria.
Nigerians, those ones suffer.
Nigeria, you know, it's normal. It's normal.
3 hours.
It's a daily thing.
They have 3
Everyone
hours
has
of
a
electricity.
generator. Everyone has a generator.
Yes.
All right, so a lot of comments coming in. I just want to remind the listeners that you're tuned into the Politics Hour of the One Mic Show. I'm your anchor and producer, Ali Badawi. We're talking about Kenya, tokens, life after elections, all this from a Samabani perspective. And we will later talk about Kenyan real estate, land, and Airbnb investing by diaspora. So stay tuned for that. But before we continue, Mika, please briefly tell us what we're going to be talking about in sports tonight. Mika.
Since sports, we're going to be talking about rugby. We're going to be talking about two of Kenya's greatest, and actually one of them is one of the world's greatest. The second highest try scorer in World Sevens Rugby has retired, so we're going to be talking about that. And also going to be talking about the upcoming 7 series in the Americas, which is both in LA and Vancouver, Canada.
Okay, good. And we'll also be looking at the 2023 marathon calendar. Remember, Eliud Kipchoge is going to be in Boston, so that's going to be big, and that's going to be in the sports segment. Ruth.
Okay, so I need to read the comments, but before I do, I need to comment on that South Africa blackouts. There was a journal today, the podcast, that was the topic, and they say blackouts, corruption, and a poisoned CEO. South Africa's state-owned power company Eskom is struggling to keep the lights on in the country. So if you wanna listen, a good listen about power issues in South Africa, that would be one.
Is that an article or like their podcast?
That's the podcast.
Okay.
Today's journal's podcast was that.
All right.
Yeah. Which journal, you know?
It's Wall Street Journal.
They have a
WSJ.
WSJ. Yes.
Yeah, be clear, man.
Okay.
Sorry, my bad.
Okay. So Pablo says, let's face it. So we're talking about the cost of living in Kenya. Let's face it, during campaigns, politicians will promise anything and everything so that they can be elected. The problem is no one asks for specifics, more so during debate. Then when one gets into power, reality checks in for the masses. Washeke, when talking about token prices, power prices in Kenya, a high percentage of the unit price is going to taxes. Lazima mlipe euro and China bonds. And the kicker is the higher your usage, the higher your unit price. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Pablo says, besides policy, also well-informed policymakers, putting aside political patronage and rewarding supporters. That Kenya power issue is because we got loans from World Bank, and World Bank financed foreign private companies from Europe to come generate power using diesel and sell to Kenyan. They are charging almost 20 times the cost for power generated by Kenyan, and nothing can be done because it's a contract done through the World Bank. In addition, they're charging in dollars, and Kenya has to buy the power generated regardless whether there is demand or not.
Can I pause you there for one quick second?
Yes.
They're charging in dollars.
Yeah. No wonder the Forex charge.
So this is something that I brought up before, and I got a lot of heat. You know, like when for example, like you're bringing your dollars and you're trying to invest into Kenya shillings. Mm-hmm. This is what happens. That's why there's that surcharge there. You know, I always tell people, like, ask yourself when you go, when you're opening an account and you want to open a dollar account, notice that the interest rate that they're going to give in a dollar account is different from the Kenya shilling account. So that's just something that is kind of silent, but people should always have fresh in their minds. That's why there are these charges.
Is the interest higher or lower?
The interest on dollars is much lower.
Oh, okay.
The interest on dollars is much lower. What they'll give maybe 10 or even 11% on a Kenyan account, they'll give you less than 4%. Sometimes maybe even 3% on the dollar.
You know, when people look at sending money back home, they look at the buying price. I don't know if anyone of you has looked at the selling price of the dollar from Kenya today.
I've not looked at it in a while, but I try to stay away from, I try to keep my money in dollars. I mean, I love Kenya, I'm patriotic and all, but hey, man, kuna vile Kenya shilling inaungua.
Okay.
Niliangalia, they were selling at 135.
Okay, now look at that. Anyway, Ruth and
and because there's that shortage of dollars in Kenya, for people who need to transact, my rule of thumb has always been, it doesn't matter what I do. Say hypothetically somebody sends me for something, they pay me back in dollars. I don't care what the rate is over there. Pay me back in dollars, because the Kenya shilling is not something that I can function with when I come back here. So that's something that people also need to try to keep in mind when you're dealing with the dollars. And you can always negotiate with the banks if you have a dollar account on the exchange rate. And otherwise, you just take your dollars. If you don't want to change it, then keep. It's up to you how you want to operate in terms of what you're keeping, the money that you're putting in this account. But you can negotiate with